The failed former President Donald Trump seemingly setting up an insanity defense for his forthcoming criminal trials admits to crimes in one of the worst interviews I have ever seen him give. It has been years since Donald Trump gave an interview even remotely this insane. The interview was conducted by NBC's Kristen Welker. Not a particularly great job by Welker, but that's sort of a side story. Let's start here. Welker asking Trump, when you go to bed at night, there's a nightmarish thought for all of you. When Trump tucks himself in his jammies at night with his phone to send out troths, does he worry about going to jail? And Trump says, no, I don't.
Let me ask you this, Mr. President.
They indicted their political opponent.
I just want to hear from you
I did everything right and they indicted me.
on this. I want to know what's in your head. When you go to
Mayonnaise, that's
bed
what.
at night, do you worry about going to jail?
No, I don't really. I don't even think about it. I'm built a little differently, I guess, because I have had people come up to me and say, how do you do it, sir? How do you do it?
But were they crying when they asked you is the question.
I don't even think about it.
Let me ask
There you go.
this.
It doesn't even cross his mind, the whole jail thing. An incredible moment, but not nearly as incredible as the moment where Trump admitted the entire plot to steal the election was his decision. Kristen Welker asks, lawyers told you this, that, the other thing. Ultimately, he says it was his decision. He confesses and takes full responsibility. This may indeed be quite the exhibit at Trump's forthcoming criminal trial.
Most senior lawyers in your own administration and on your campaign told you that after you'd lost more than 60 legal challenges, that it was over. Why did you ignore them and decide to listen to a new outside group?
Because I didn't respect them.
You'd
as
hired
lawyers,
them.
Sure, but that doesn't mean, you hire them, you never met these people, you get a recommendation, they turn out to be rhinos or they turn out to be not so good. In many cases, I didn't respect them, but I did respect others. I respected many others that said the election was rigged.
You called some of your outside lawyers. You said they had crazy theories. Why were you listening to them? Were you listening to them because they were telling you what you wanted to hear?
You know who I listened to myself? I saw what happened.
So this is Trump's ego getting him in trouble. He has to start talking about how he's the decider. He's in charge. He knows everything. But it gets him into big trouble.
I watched that election and I thought the election was over at 10 o'clock in the evening.
You were listening to your instincts.
My instincts are a big part of it. That's been the thing that's gotten me to where I am, my instincts. But I also listen to people. There are many lawyers. I could give you many books. There are
Books he's not read,
that
but
are written on how the election was rigged. There are numerous books that were written on how the election was
Just
rigged.
to be clear, were you listening to your lawyer's advice or were you listening to your own instincts?
I was listening to different people, and when I added it all up, the election was rigged. There are books
Were you
that
calling
are
the
written.
shots, though?
In fact, Molly Hemingway wrote a great book.
But were you
called
calling the
Rigged.
shots ultimately?
Excuse me. Molly Hemingway, who's highly respected and great, she wrote a book, a best-selling book called Rigged.
Were you calling the shots, though, Mr. President, ultimately?
As to whether or not I believed it was rigged, oh, sure.
Okay.
It was my decision, but I listened to some people. Some people said that. Like guys like Bill Barr, he was a stiff, but he was.
it was my decision. It was my decision. Ultimately, Trump is to blame for every piece of that plan that went down. Shockingly, in a subversion of the rule of law and due process, Trump says he would consider pardoning Enrique Tarrio, the Proud Boy leader convicted and sentenced to more than 20 years.
Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio was sentenced to 22 years in jail. Now that you know what the sentence is, 22 years in jail, will you give him a pardon? Will you give
ready?
other Proud Boys a pardon?
I don't know him. I never met him. I never heard of him until I started reading this
Will
stuff.
you pardon him?
But I want to tell you, he and other people have been treated horribly.
Will you pardon him?
In Minneapolis, I'd certainly look at it. I'd look at that, and I'd look at all the other people that have suffered.
There you go. So Trump would consider pardoning an individual who has been clearly adjudicated fairly by the justice system just because, I don't know, I guess he was a Trump supporter. Here is Trump, and this is a truly stunning moment. Trump lying about everything regarding what happened on January 6, 2021. See if you can find even a kernel of truth
I
here.
want to know who you called
By the way,
on that day.
Nancy Pelosi. I
wanna
don't
talk
have.
about
Why
that
would
day.
I tell you that? Listen,
Don't wanna
Nancy
talk about
Pelosi
that?
was in charge of security.
Nancy Pelosi was not in charge of security.
She turned down 10,000 soldiers.
She did not turn down 10,000 soldiers.
If she didn't turn down the soldiers, you wouldn't have had January 6th.
Did you call military or law enforcement?
What?
Did you call military or law enforcement at the moment the Capitol
I'm
was
not going
under
to tell
attack?
you anything.
I'm not telling you.
Let me put it this way. I behaved so well. I did such a good job. Nancy Pelosi turned down 10,000 soldiers.
Lie.
If she didn't do that. And now
Nancy
I understand.
Pelosi doesn't have the
I
authority
understand
that
the
you
police
have as
testified
commander-in-chief, though.
Listen to me, Kristen. Listen to me. I understand that the police testified against her, the chief very strongly against her. Capitol Police, great people. They testified against her, and they burned all the evidence. Okay, they burned all the evidence. They
That I don't even know what he's talking about. Burned it.
destroyed all the evidence about Nancy Pelosi.
What do you say to people who wonder why you as commander-in-chief, you have authorities that Nancy Pelosi doesn't have as
No,
commander-in-chief?
she has authority over
Why
the
didn't
Capitol.
you send help in that moment, though?
Frankly, just so you understand, I assumed that she took care of it.
This is such an obvious lie because Trump was watching the entire thing on TV and people were coming to him saying, "Sir," with tears in their eyes, "you really should deploy this, that, the other thing." It would have been natural to say, "Oh, but didn't Nancy already do it?" And someone would go, "No, she didn't. You should do it."
She turned down.
But when you realized that the National Guard wasn't coming?
Well,
when
you don't
wasn't
realize
coming?
anything until quite a while. National Guard not coming. I asked it to be there 3 days in advance.
And again, Trump asked for security for himself on that day. And that's been a lie that's been often repeated. This is an insane interview. And then the topic of abortion came up. If you thought it was already insane, Trump brings up post-birth abortions, which don't exist and quite literally are not a thing.
Democrats don't want to be radical on the issue. Most of them, some do. They don't want to be radical on the issue. They don't want to kill a baby in the 7th month or the 9th month or after birth. And they're allowed to do that, and you can't do that.
One important fact check we do want to highlight. Abortions later in pregnancy are exceedingly rare.
Yeah. It also might have been good to mention, Kristen, that a post-birth abortion literally does not exist. It's not a thing. It's just ridiculous, and it's a talking point they are repeating. The truth about abortion is almost 60% of abortions are before week 7. Another 31% are between weeks 8 and 13. So you've got 60 plus 31 is 91. 91% of abortions are before week 13. Another 8.8% are between weeks 14 and 21, all still before viability. So we are now at 99.8% before viability. That's the truth. Now, what about the other 0.2% that happen after 21 weeks? Those are still heavily skewed to weeks 21, 22, 23, and 24. So the post-birth and even the late-term abortion stuff, we're talking about one, something that doesn't exist. After birth, it's not an abortion. And when it comes to third trimester, completely extenuating tragic circumstances that almost never happen. But it doesn't matter. Trump will just make it up. And Kristen Welker saying, late term is rare. What about after birth, which does not exist? Lastly, here's a bizarre word salad from Trump to round this entire thing out. Something about Biden flying airplanes.
Why are they doing it? But here's what they did. They saw this happening. And he went to the Attorney General of the United States and he told them, indict Trump.
There's just no evidence of that, Mr.
Why?
President.
Because you mean he's
But let's stay on
Look
track.
at all the lies he's told.
Mr. President, I want to talk
Kristen,
about
wait a minute. Wait. Could I say one thing? Look at all the lies he's told over the last couple of weeks. He said he was at the World Trade Center, and he wasn't. He said he flew airplanes, right? He didn't. He said he drove trucks, and he didn't. Everything he says is like a lie. It's terrible.
Mr. President,
Even his handicap in golf, he said he's a 6. He's not a 6.
I want to stay focused on you.
Okay.
Right.
For the purposes of this interview.
Well, but Trump wants to talk about Joe Biden. Whacked out interview. And if you're shocked by this, just wait until you see Donald Trump's weekend speeches.